Welcome back to the McCoy Leadership Podcast, elevating your impact through valuable insights and conversations about leadership. Welcome back to the McCoy Leadership Podcast. Today we have Oksana Lukash with us. She is not your typical HR leader, but maybe a people strategist. And she has 20 years of experience leading people, working in HR, including some time, I believe, she calls it being the chief people officer, which maybe we'll get a little more into. Oksana, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend with us here in miserable, cold Pennsylvania while you are in beautiful, sunny Southern California. But I'm not holding that against you. Welcome.
No, thank you so much for having me.
So tell us a little bit. I'll start with saying I often think about people in HR and I kind of feel sorry for them in some ways because, well, they have to deal with people like me and people like others on a daily basis. And it's always about people. I would rather have a list of tasks to do than, have to deal with people some days. But tell us a little bit of that backstory. How did you get to where you are today?
Sure. No, thank you for asking. Definitely was not something I think most kids don't grow up wanting to be in HR. Probably most have no idea what it is in the first place. And especially when I was a little girl, I grew up in Russia. I moved to the US at 13. So the whole concept of individuals in the workplace having rights is something was very foreign to me, just with where I was raised and how things were, but absolutely fell into it. I started my career in the administrative field, ended up getting a role as an executive assistant to the director of HR. And this is where I urge everyone throughout their career, especially early on, to be their own biggest advocate. I was bored out of my mind in my new job 2 weeks in, and I spoke up and had a conversation with my leader, letting her know that her definition of busy did not align with my definition of busy, and I had significantly more capacity. And she, again, saw something in me, started exposing me to HR projects. I loved it from the very early beginning to the point that I even then, instead of majoring just in business management, which I was already going to school for at the same time too, I did my emphasis in HR as well. And that helped propel my career.
So one piece that you said there, and I know you were only 13 when you came from Russia, but you said that having rights in the workplace was something foreign to you. And I think we all maybe realize it at some level, but I'm just curious to touch on that. How lucky are we here in the United States to have a workplace where it even matters maybe how we feel?
Yeah. Extremely. I think, again, we very much take for granted. I think it's just human nature, our experience, what we think is normal. That's where I believe the best teacher for any person is travel. If it was up to me, I think it should be mandatory for everyone in high school and college to go and travel for at least a year to as many places as possible and actually be ingrained in a different culture, be able to learn what it's like to build relationships with somebody, because they will just have such a better understanding and appreciation for what they might take for granted every single day. So when, again, it was very interesting because my grandparents and my parents, everyone on my dad's side was a doctor. Everyone on my mom's side was a university professor. So the two sides of the family always talked with, trying to decide which one of those two routes I would go. And when, again, I started my career in HR, trying to explain to my grandparents what it was, like they still don't understand it. Because again, for example, in Russia, there is no such thing as amount of hours that you work and potentially, right, being eligible for overtime. The manager tells you what they want you to do. And if you don't like it, guess what? They'll just find somebody else, right? There's certain things that we do have that do not exist other places. Are we perfect? No, because at the same time, I would also say that what most companies do offer in the US, unfortunately, is not out of the goodness of their heart. It's to follow the state and federal legislation to not get in trouble legally. And that's where most of policies and procedures and ways that organizations operate come from. So I think that is then up to each leader within that company and each company to decide, do they want to do something bare minimum for their talent, or do they want to build experiences that are worthy of the talent?
So interestingly, I remember one of my first bosses telling me, I was in a management position, and I don't remember the exact circumstance, but I had an idea. And they didn't really like it, and I brought it up again a second time. And I remember them telling me specifically that you need to understand that the workplace is not a democracy. The workplace is a dictatorship, and I'm the dictator. And, that was their view. Now, this was a person that had been managing since probably the late 50s. Excuse me. But that was their view, and that was their view of employees. And we could dissect that. But, even there from 1950 till today, here in the United States, our workplaces have taken, such a change from what they were to where they are. And, I guess my only question there, and I'm sure there are business leaders listening that might ask the same thing, do we ever go too far? Do we get to a point where now, the purpose of the business is to serve only the employees and we forgot about the customers? And I'm not suggesting, just to clarify that it's not okay to take care of the employees. I don't want to be mistaken, but our mission behind a business always has to include somebody other than the employees, a customer, or, another organization or somebody that we're serving. Is it possible that we go too far? And have you ever seen that happen, where a business kind of becomes more about the employees than it is the people that the people that are paying them?
Yeah, my question to that, and I don't want to answer a question with a question, but I would say, what is wrong with focusing and going above and beyond for your employees? I actually have not seen it backfire, because my thing is, we cannot ask others to do things we're not willing to do ourselves. And what I mean by that is, you're absolutely right. Every single business, in order for it to be a business, for it to be profitable, for it to grow, they have customers. In order for our employees to treat our customers the way, go above and beyond for the customer service to be, in a way, also a competitive advantage, our employees themselves need to understand what that's like. So if we are doing bare minimum for our own staff, how can we, I would even say, dare ask them to treat our customers like the important individuals that they are? I have not seen that work well, because if you yourself have never experienced that, you're making things up and it's not going to be consistent. What I have seen is the environments and cultures and companies that do create experiences for their employees and their talent go above and beyond and treat them like the most important asset that they are, don't have to teach them how to treat the customer. It automatically happens. Because if all of my needs as an employee are not just met, but there's trust, there's psychological safety. Again, even with the example that you gave, my ideas are something I can share and have a conversation with my leader, and we can go back and forth. It doesn't have to be taken. It doesn't have to be implemented. but I get insight from the leader of why potentially we're not able to move forward with that idea. And I understand it, right? And we're working on it together. That's the environments where why would I not be patient and understand the problem that the customer is going through, go again above and beyond to be able to fix it. I've only seen, right, the positive side of it versus if I am looking over my shoulder, I'm terrified to make a mistake. Every time I speak up, it gets shut down. That's most likely how I'm going to be when somebody's complaining about something. And to me, right, in comparison to my environment, it's such a small thing. I'm going to probably do, right, the bare minimum to just try to get them off the phone and move on. And that's not what we want.
So just to go back, I'll clarify, and maybe I didn't ask the question quite correctly. I guess really what maybe was trying to say is it possible if it's not done properly, is it possible for a company to lose its mission amongst, and I'll give an example then, amongst trying to be more employee focused? So again, and kind of I guess the example I would use is, a company has a very concrete mission, and part of that mission is to serve their customers. Part of that mission is to educate their employees. And obviously, with no customers, you can't continue to educate your employees. And so if you don't have proper oversight, and is it possible for a company to go too far where, okay, we've now spent all of our time and effort on, and I'll use a crazy example, maybe somebody in the employees says, you know what, I think we should be supporting the Save the Whales. And everybody gets behind that. Now, the company has nothing to do, but they decide to go down this road, and all of a sudden they become a whale-saving company, but yet their mission says that they're supposed to be selling chairs to offices. And so that's really my question is, should people be careful, and is it possible that as we start down this road, that we need good leadership at the top to keep us focused on our full mission?
Yeah, I think we need good leadership all throughout, and a title does not make somebody a leader. And I completely align with you. We should not just be going ahead and chasing every single idea. And leadership is not about saying yes, right? That's, I think, again, the misconception. What I encourage companies to do is, to your point, be very clear on who they are and who they're not. And you still have, at the end of the day, to your point, too, business to run. And you don't have a business without customers. But I also would say you don't have a company and a business without employees. So there needs to be a balance. And then there are ways that you can balance the flexibility and alignment with some of the passions that your employees have without losing your identity. So, but everything is, again, within reason. So example, I'll go back to your example about saving the whales. We all, right, have our own things that are near and dear to our hearts for whatever reason. So if a company wants to support its employees' philanthropic passions, how about instead, right, providing certain amount of time a year that is paid to employees to go and volunteer for whatever cause that they're aligned with? How about potentially then say, hey, we will match dollar for dollar up to X amount of dollars per employee per year, right, for your donation, again, in a charitable cause or a mission that is near and dear to your heart. So you can still do that without losing the focus on, right, what is your identity, what is your mission, and you're balancing out the two, to get back to your example.
Now, you mentioned there for the company to know who they are and what they are. How important is it that the company makes sure that is clear in the interview process? Is it important for the interviewee to know those things?
100%. I think that to me is a make or break it. The same, what I say is every company has a culture, same way that every individual has a personal brand. And that now word is getting overused. I call it your voice. The difference is, does it accurately represent who you are? And again, is it intentional? So by companies being very clear on who they are, what the environment is, what it's like to work there, what their values are, what gets rewarded, what doesn't get rewarded, they are able to use that as a guiding light and kind of their northern star and a filter for every single decision that they make, including who gets to join their organization and who doesn't. Because honestly, the biggest breakdowns happen is when you do not clearly are able to speak about your environment and you bring in somebody that is not going to be successful in it. And that it doesn't only impact that individual and the leader that they report to, it impacts the entire organization, the team, everybody, right? Is the leader is then spending time with that individual that's having a very tough time. They're not delivering. So why not, again, spend more time in the recruiting process to, again, find that alignment and bring in people that would thrive in, again, the environment that we have created. So if you are, let's say, right, a warm and fuzzy culture and all of that is very important to you, fantastic. Then find people that would thrive in that environment versus if, right, you need the type A personalities that want to be left alone, that just want to come in, do their job, be right at the highest rank within the organization or the highest sales numbers and things like that and be left alone, fantastic. Then hire those people. But don't, I think too many companies use the peanut butter approach of trying to be, right, a little bit of everything to everyone. And that's not what it's about.
So on that same vein, let's say you're interviewing me for a position and we're on our third interview. And during the third interview, maybe that's your time that you really lay out what all the values are of your business, who your customers are, who you stand for. And so we're already on the third interview. So it's pretty obvious that you think I'm a good candidate and you're sold. You want me because I fill every checkbox that is there. And we get to the end of the interview and you start asking some trial closing questions like, well, Amos, what do you think? And if I were to say, I think you guys have a great company, but I don't think your company values and my personal values align. So I don't think it's going to be a good fit. So then naturally, because you've invested 3 interviews, you're going to change everything and try to tell me how it's going to be okay. And maybe you can change the company's values, right?
No.
My point is that happens
all the time.
And should we, my question is, how would we go about handling that when we've invested that time and we think we found the right person, but they're telling us, I don't think we align. What do you do?
We should not be having that conversation in the third round interview. This is where the company needs to be showing who they are in every opportunity that they have all the time. LinkedIn is phenomenal. This is right. I would again encourage all the leadership, the marketing team, the people team to be very active and use that platform. Post videos, post content, post events, post pictures, post articles, and just do posts in general showing what it's like to be within the organization. Talk about the culture, talk about the values. And the reason you need to be doing constantly, you're going to attract individuals that, again, right, feel like that's the right environment for them. And those are the people then mainly that are going to start applying to your roles. And you're going to detract the individuals that they're like, again, hey, this is fantastic. I think they're doing great things, not for me. And they're probably most likely not even going to apply. And that is, again, where I strongly believe those are the conversations that should be had in the first interview, or even in the early stages of the pre-screen, the phone conversation, the Zoom conversation, whatever it might be. Because to me, it's as important about what you do and how you're going to do it, especially if we are going to be bringing you in as somebody who can be with the organization for a period of time, a leader or someone that can step in onto leading teams, right? That alignment needs to be there from the very beginning. So if that is a conversation you're having in third interview, you kind of screwed the pooch there quite a bit and wasted a lot of time on both ends. And that's where we need to take the recruiting process more seriously and invest more time there. There isn't an easy button that you can push and push people through really quick. And I would also say, I've been asked this a lot, is what happens when, again, you are unapologetic about your culture. You know exactly what it is. You continue to grow and you get to the point where you need certain skill sets that are so rare to find, but that is a critical step for you to get from where you are to where you're going. What do you do? And then the talent is, again, very scarce. You find some individuals that have the skill sets, but they are not aligned to your culture whatsoever and would just be an immediate cancer. What do you do? My answer to that, kind of straightforward. Hire them as a consultant. Bring them in for a very specific project or a period of time to complete what it is that they need to do, Put as many kind of guardrails and safety walls around it as possible. Be, I think, again, very clear with everyone that will be working with them on what they're doing. And then this is just a focus on their skill set only. So you continue to preserve that culture, benefit from their accomplishments, but then they're not part of your organization long term. And they can't, again, upset what you've been building for so long, because it takes a very long time to build your culture and sustain it and continue to make it better. And it is very quickly to break it, and takes even longer to be able to rebuild it, even if it's possible.
So you also touched there on on two different sides of it, but this idea of, if we are hiring somebody, we hope they stay for more than a week. I have heard over and over, and I'm sure you have as well, it's just the statistics. Today's demographics, they change jobs 6 times in their lifetime. They change, careers 8 times. Well, we're just not going to have people that are going to stay here for 20 or 30 years anymore. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And my question always is, and I'm curious your thoughts. Okay, so where are you at today? What's your, if we know this, where's your average turnover? How many years are you getting on average? And if that number is 6, can you do something to make it 10? Can you do something to make it slightly longer? And, an internal look in your own company. Is there anything that I'm doing that I could do differently? But what are we looking at into the future? What do you think the average time somebody will stay with an individual company will be as we go on into the future?
Yeah. I believe the latest statistics are that folks change jobs every 8 to 12 months. We're not even talking years. The something to think of though is they change jobs. That can still be within your organization. So I think that comes back to a little bit of an earlier point. Companies for a very long time, and you provided a couple of examples, have very much treated talent as hey, you need us. We tell you what to do. You do it. You don't ask any questions unless we ask you, and you're able to respond, and you get a paycheck and be happy with it. That has worked, I think, for a long time, because again, folks stayed with organizations for a long time. The world that we live in now is very different. Individuals have so many other ways to make an income outside of a 9 to 5. So the reality is companies need talent more than talent needs them. A lot of individuals can make an incredible living through, right, even podcasting, on social media, doing consulting, right, traveling the world, blogging about it, being sponsored by different brands and things like that. So the way we work has to change. And that's where companies do need to make it about employees and create experiences that talent decides to spend their time there. Also, we do need to stop providing the bare minimum for our employees. We have absolutely obsolete ways of working, and what we think as an organization we have the right to be in charge of that we don't. So example, I use this all the time. Who thought it was okay for an organization to tell you who your family members are? Why do we as a company feel that we have a right to use a blanket statement to define who somebody's family is? Does everybody grow up the exact same way? Is every single family structure the same? No. So it's even things like that. Let's stop meddling in people's lives in ways that we shouldn't. Let's create policies that actually support our individuals in whatever's going on in their lives in a way that they can take time, that they can be human, that they can have their feelings and emotions. And then, right, they're going to stay potentially with companies for amount of time that it makes sense. That's where different conversations need to take place. Example, right, if you are my leader, it should be up to me to understand what does growth and development looks like for me. It's not your job to figure it out. And I think a lot of individual contributors are like, well, you're my manager, you figure it out and tell me when my next promotion is. No, I need to figure that out because my definition is going to be very different from yours and every single other person. Then when we are interacting, I can share with you what it is that I actually want to do. And we can work together on giving me exposure to that growth development project skill sets I want to gain. And then you can give me those opportunities to potentially change jobs or expand my responsibilities every 8 to 12 months. So I can continue growing within the company. I might be doing different things, but right, that's happening within the organization. Also, if we are again, keeping the two-way communication going back and forth, and let's just come up again with a crazy example, that my goal is to be an astronaut. Well, that's not going to happen in your company, right? It's just, no matter what you do, that's just not going to happen.
Yep.
So, and I want to do it within 2 years. How about, again, we're going to make my 2 years within the organization the best they possibly can be. You open up your network to me as my leader to help me dabble or get exposure to be able to accomplish my goal. You're forever then going to be part of that journey if I reach that. And guess what? Even if I leave your team and your company, I'm going to be the biggest walking advertisement for your leadership, for your development in me, and for the fact that you helped me get my role. Don't you think I'm going to be sending every single person I can think of to work at the company to be able to, right, to get skills to grow and to develop? I think that's what we are making this so transactional, and we want to give the bare minimum to the individuals, but have them give us everything. And it doesn't work that way. It is a relationship, and it has to be mutually beneficial for both sides outside of the paycheck. Yes, we get a paycheck, but you also, right, get our time, and you can't run a business without us either.
And yes, and as I'm thinking about that, the one thing I find it interesting. I mean, you said it straightforward that you as the employee need to know what your growth plan is and what you want. Now, I will say, in my experiences, when you get into the manufacturing world and you're at the hourly employees, that are making the widgets, running the factory, and all of those things, that gets a little bit harder because some of them really, truly just want to come to work, put their time in, get their paycheck, and go home, and that's that. But even at that, the encouragement that I would give to people based on what you just said, it's still about the experience and what can you do for that person. I had a guy at the very bottom of the barrel, so to speak, at a specific plant, and I found out that he was a great artist. And I had no need for an artist. I mean, I couldn't, it took me a while. And I finally had a project. I needed a map made of the property. And so I went to the guy and said, hey, I understand you're a pretty good artist. Could I get you to take, the next 2 days, your 8-hour shift? I'll pay you, your normal rate, but I want you to draw a map. And he drew the most amazing map that I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And he also became more loyal over that because I would occasionally let him do things like that because I was always looking, even at my hourly team, what skills do they have that I don't have, or what enjoyments do they have, what likes do they have, and how do you work that in there? But I will say that with the caveat that there were some that there really wasn't any, that they really truly just wanted to come get a paycheck and go home. And that's fine as well. We need those people. I'm not suggesting we don't.
Fantastic.
But you got to work to have that knowledge and understand them. So
no, 100%.
I am curious, which we've spent a lot of time really just hashing out kind of some of these pieces, but what are some of your steps? What are you doing with your clients that is helping to make them successful?
Yeah. And it's exactly actually right. Your example is perfect. I'm not saying, right, we can't promote every single person. We can't do that. Like there's still a business, and there's only the higher you go, the fewer roles you have. So it is absolutely important and amazing to know folks that they're like, hey, again, I want to come in, I want to clock in, I want to know exactly what I'm doing, right? And I'm happy in this role. This is what I want to do, and I don't want to learn anything new. I don't want to grow. That's amazing. Because you can have then very, again, transparent conversation. You can then, right, build compensation and reward programs that, again, align with that type of behavior. And I've done that in companies as well. When we had our, right, solid, I wouldn't even call them B players. They're solid A players. They're hired for a role. They do exactly what they're supposed to do. Fantastic. We went ahead and then created a cost of living adjustment. So if you're doing exactly what you are asked to, no going above and beyond, not in a bad way, you're performing, you're meeting expectations. So we would decide, right, based on the local and national CPI, what was the average cost of living. The board would approve whatever that increase would be, and we would go ahead and apply it to everybody across the organization automatically. And then we would spend the time as leaders discussing those individuals that needed to be promoted, whose role has changed, evolved in such a way that it wasn't a temporary blimp, right, for a period of time, but it has evolved as the company has evolved. And then we talked about the different sorts of compensation for them. So, for example, going back on manufacturing floor, that's incredible. Maybe then depending on the type of business you have, and with any manufacturing, right, attendance is important, attention to detail, quality, right, reporting accidents, or again, reporting opportunities to reduce accidents. That is all crucial. So maybe you look into compensation and bonuses that are assigned to individuals that bring up things that help you work more efficiently and safer. And there's opportunity for those folks to make money that way. And it's just understanding each person on your team and what is that experience and environment that's going to make them do their best work. I think we need to stop focusing on performance management We shouldn't be managing anything about somebody's performance. We should be creating environments that unleash their performance, that ignite their performance and potential, whatever it means for that each individual. And if we do it correctly, it becomes almost like a well-oiled machine, because you are able as a leader to figure out where you need to spend your time and how. And you are putting then individuals on projects, exposing them to, again, situations that are interested in that versus, right, the spaghetti to the wall approach.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was in manufacturing, I was in concrete block, and concrete has a tendency of getting hard. That's one of those things concrete does. And unfortunately, there were times where something happened. You had a breakdown. The electricity went out. Whatever it may be, there were times that we had no choice but to work an extra 3 or 4 hours, because if you didn't have a job to come back to, so to speak, the next day. And many times the employees would, everybody jumped in, you did what you had to do, and it was all hands on deck. And with that, I had realized, and I came up with at one point in time, I've talked about this before, I stole something from Monopoly. I took the get out of jail free card, and I created a get out of cleanup free card. And when we would do stuff like that, I would give everybody that helped a card, or if I saw something else good happening. And my other point is, like, in that world with my employees, I realized something that meant more to them than bonuses or extra pay was time off. And they could take that time, it gave them, I think, an hour and a half paid at the end of the day that they could take off. Well, that allowed them to go to Junior's violin recital or, whatever. And that became such a valuable thing for that team because they enjoyed that and they knew that they were appreciated, but it also gave them, and sometimes they would work extra hard because they knew they would get one and they had something that they wanted to do. Go ahead.
Like something there, because again, you're hitting on such an important part that gets missed. And I use this word now all the time. We're so obsessed with Frankensteining ourselves and Frankensteining our companies. And what I mean by that is, instead of looking internally to understand what are our needs, what are the needs of us as individuals, our employees, what works for our company, we're looking and chasing whatever the latest trend is and just taking pieces of it and not even thinking that we're only exposed to what somebody else is letting us see. You did the most beautiful thing of understanding the needs of your team. And you created an environment where they got treated the way they want to be treated. You rewarded them with things or items or time that was meaningful to them, not because you read it in a book or latest article because somebody else is doing it. No, you knew your team. And that's what we all need to do as leaders, is focus on what does our talent need? What does my team need? What does our company look like and what works for us? And again, look inside versus continuing to chase, all the shiny objects on the outside.
So as we're coming close to an end here, I want to make sure that we let everybody know, where can they find you? Where can they get engaged with you? How does that work? Yeah.
So I am doing some updates to my website. It should be up and running in the next couple of weeks. My website is oksanalukash.com. And then folks are also welcome to reach out to me and connect on LinkedIn. I'm very active there. Love meeting new individuals, having conversations, partnering with anybody, and just engaging in each other's content. So welcome all the connections on LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. And we'll be sure to put all of that in the show notes as well. So we end every segment with kind of a couple of rapid fire questions. I ask all my guests the same questions. And someday I'm going to publish all of them after you guys all become really famous, and then I'll get rich. That's the plan. But
perfect. Let's do it.
The first question is, throughout your career, what is the single best piece of advice you've ever received?
Be yourself.
Okay.
So that goes back again to not Frankensteining yourself.
Yep.
Embrace who you are, what's unique and different about you, right? There's only one you out of 8+ billion people in the world. Everybody else is taken. So embrace who you are and bring your talents and share them with the world. Because again, no one else can do it but you.
I like it. Be comfortable in your own skin. Second question, what is your go-to book that maybe you continually go back to get good insights out of?
Ooh, my latest book that I literally felt like it was written for me is by Claude Silver. It's called Be Yourself at Work. She just released it and last year. And I honestly feel it could just be even called Be Yourself. But it's a leadership book, but it feels like you are sitting and talking to a dear friend. And every single human should read it. And there's so many takeaways for every single one of us as a human, as a person, as a friend, as a family member, as an employee, and as a leader.
I like it. Next question is, if we could magically get all of the school administrators across the world into one room and you had just a second or two to give them one thing that you thought would serve them to give to students through their student career that would help turn out better, well-rounded, ready for life students, what would that one thing be?
If I can add a caveat to that question, I don't think the issue is with what the school administrators are doing. I think they're absolutely the unsung heroes. We as a society need to give them resources. We need to invest in those spaces. They are doing one of the probably the most stressful, thankless jobs that they are, and they get paid pennies on the dollar compared to how they should be rewarded. A lot of them do not go into that career to become rich. They go because, again, of their passion of being able to shape young adults and make them into incredible human beings. So we as a society owe them so much more than what they're getting. And we need to figure out ways to not cut corners when it comes to schools, to budgets, to what they receive, to invest where they don't have to pay out of their own pockets, to have even the bare minimum necessities that their schools need, because it's bigger when, especially in a lot of areas where the children's basic human needs are not being met, meaning they don't have clean clothes, they don't have food in their belly. It doesn't matter what the administrators do and what they teach them and what they expose them to. A hungry child that has not eaten is not going to be able to learn. So let's start at the basics and focus on that. And then I think absolutely right, businesses, leaders like you and I and everybody else can step in and have career days, conversations, and other things. But I think the problem is a lot bigger. And I think we're focusing on, we're jumping ahead where, right, we need to fix the foundation.
I like it. Last question. In today's ever-changing world of technology, with all of the new things that are coming out, it feels like hourly. What piece of technology or software are you using today that you find useful?
Ooh, embrace AI. It's here to stay. Same thing as, right, the computer did not go away. The internet did not go away and shaped and changed our lives and became just part of how we live. AI is here as well. So it can either, you can embrace it and work with it, or again, it will replace those individuals that are not going to become AI native. I think AI is going to make work more human and individuals that do not have the ability to have a conversation like we have today, those are the ones that are going to get replaced. But humans that are just going to get curious, that are going to get comfortable with being uncomfortable and becoming lifelong learners, those are the ones that are going to go far.
And I don't mean this as a insult to anybody that might be listening that does this, but I will say, you said, having a conversation like we do. I have listened to a few podcasts that were obviously AI generated, and I did not enjoy them. They were very tough because the interaction wasn't there. And anyhow, I found that interesting. So I would agree that the people that don't want to do it will be replaced. But I am fearful on that day if our jobs as podcast host and guests go away and it's all AI, that would be pretty boring.
I think, no, but you nailed on something, right? It's right now, a lot of companies are using AI and focusing on creating more efficiency. And I think that's a myth. We should focus on creating more capacity, meaning let's use AI as the incredible tool that it is to do the work that it is going to be better at doing, and create capacity for us to, again, engage on that human level, because it's not going to have emotions. It's not going to understand us. It's not going to be able to still pick up on a lot of those nuances, experiences, and our own stories that each of us has. And that's what makes us different and unique. And I think that is the part that won't go away. So let's use it to make our lives easier and to create more capacity for us to really lean in and be human. I
like it. Well, thank you so much, Oksana, for spending some time with our listeners. For our listeners, if you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to check out our past episodes. Don't forget to give us 5 stars on whatever platform you're listening on. That helps us to know that you like us, as well as you'll get the alerts when the new episodes come out. Until next time, we appreciate all of you.